Why won't you date? His boss asked. A single dad's answer broke her heart. At exactly 6:10 p.m., every night without fail, Ethan Cole shut down his workstation. Not 6:09. Not 6:11. 6:10. The lights in the emergency operations center still buzzed overhead. Radios crackled. Screens flashed with incoming data. Weather systems, traffic incidents, medical alerts, disaster response logs updating in real time. The city did not slow down just because the clock moved. But Ethan did. He logged out, slid his chair in with quiet precision, picked up his worn canvas messenger bag and walked out without a word. For 3 years, no one could remember him staying late. Not during winter storms. Not during city-wide blackouts. Not even during the warehouse explosion last spring that kept the rest of the department working until nearly midnight. People noticed. They always did. From her glass-walled office overlooking the operations floor, Claire Holloway watched him leave. She was still new enough in her role that she hadn't learned how to look away from things that bothered her. Claire had been promoted to Director of Emergency Logistics just 6 months earlier, the youngest person to ever hold the position. The City Council press release had used words like trailblazer and historic appointment. Her inbox, meanwhile, filled daily with polite skepticism and thinly veiled resistance from people who had been doing this work longer than she'd been out of graduate school. She was learning fast that authority did not automatically come with trust. So she watched everything. And Ethan Cole stood out. Not because he was loud. Not because he was difficult. But because he was exceptionally good and strangely absent in all the ways people usually proved commitment. His incident response reports were flawless. His resource allocations saved the city millions annually. His crisis simulations were now used as training models across 3 counties. And yet, no overtime. No after-hours socials. No networking events. No dating stories. No visible life beyond his desk. At exactly 6:10 he vanished. By the coffee station, someone muttered, "There he goes again." Another voice followed. "Man's allergic to extra effort." Claire didn't turn. She didn't need to. She'd already heard the theories. He's hiding something. Probably has a second family. Maybe he's just empty. Or lazy. No one that talented lacks ambition. Claire hated how easily those judgments came. She hated more that, at first, she had agreed. Earlier that afternoon, she'd been reviewing promotion recommendations. Ethan's name appeared 3 times. Senior Coordinator. Regional Operations Lead. Strategic Planning Head. Each role came with higher pay, more influence, and significantly longer hours. Each time Ethan had declined. Politely. Formally. Final. Claire had called him into her office. He arrived exactly on time. Not early. Not late. He sat across from her, hands folded, posture straight but not defensive. His face carried the calm neutrality of someone used to being evaluated. "Mr. Cole," she began, keeping her voice even, "your performance is exceptional. Frankly, I don't understand why you keep turning down advancement." He didn't rush to answer. That too was something she'd noticed. Ethan never filled silence out of discomfort. He waited as if silence itself was a tool. Finally he said, "The senior roles require evening availability." "Yes," Claire replied. "That's leadership." He met her gaze. Not challenging. Not submissive. "I leave at 6:10. She blinked. "That's not an answer. It's the only one I have." Frustration had flared in her chest then, sharp and unwelcome. "Most people would do anything for these opportunities," she'd said. "Don't you want more?" Ethan's expression didn't change, but something subtle passed through his eyes. Something tired, something old. "I already know what I want," he said quietly. And then, almost as an afterthought, "Some of us aren't climbing," he added. "We're staying." She dismissed him minutes later, irritated by the riddle he'd left behind. But now, watching him disappear into the elevator bank at exactly 6:10, the words returned to her with uncomfortable persistence. At 6:34 p.m., Ethan pulled into the narrow driveway of a brick duplex on the south side of the city. He killed the engine, sat still for one breath, then another. Inside, a porch light flickered on. The front door flew open. "Dad." A small body barreled down the steps and collided with his legs. Ethan dropped his bag just in time to catch Noah, all elbows and energy and missing front teeth. "You're late," Noah announced. "I'm 4 minutes early," Ethan replied, checking his watch. Noah squinted. "That still counts." Ethan smiled, not big, not dramatic, but real. He crouched, straightening Noah's backpack straps. "How was school?" "We had fire safety today." Mrs. Alvarez says you're a hero. Ethan shook his head gently. Mrs. Alvarez exaggerates. She does not. She said you help save people. Ethan opened the door. I help move things where they need to be. That's still saving, Noah decided. Inside, the house smelled like rice and lemon cleaner. Everything had its place. Shoes lined neatly by the door. A calendar on the fridge marked with color-coded blocks. 6:45, homework 7:30, dinner 8:15, reading 9 o'clock. Lights out. Ethan washed his hands, tied on an apron that had once been navy but was now faded to something gentler. They cooked together and practiced silence. Noah chopped mushrooms with a safety knife. Ethan handled the stove. Neither rushed. At 7:58, Noah glanced at the clock. Can we still read even if I didn't finish my math? Yes, Ethan said. We'll finish it together after. That was how things worked here. Nothing was skipped. Nothing was rushed. Nothing was abandoned. Later, as Noah brushed his teeth, Ethan stood in the hallway and checked his phone. One missed call. From St. Gabriel's Assisted Care Facility. He returned it immediately. Yes, he said softly. I'm on my way. Claire Holloway stayed late that night. She told herself it was dedication. She told herself it was leadership. But at 8:17 p.m., when the operations floor was nearly empty, she found herself standing by Ethan's desk. It was immaculate. No photos. No awards. No personal clutter. Just a single object tucked carefully into the top drawer. She hadn't meant to look. But when she saw it, she froze. A small plastic dinosaur, green, missing one eye. Worn smooth from years of handling. Not a keepsake someone kept accidentally. A keepsake someone kept intentionally. At 9:42 p.m., Ethan entered room 312 at St. Gabriel's. The hallway lights were dimmed. The nurses nodded as he passed. They knew him. They always did. Inside the room, Margaret Cole lay still beneath pale blankets. Her breathing was steady, assisted, mechanical. A stroke 5 years ago. Severe. Unforgiving. Ethan took her hand. Hi, Mom, he said. Noah got another star on his reading chart. He pulled a chair close. Saturday. He read aloud from a paperback mystery novel she used to love. Never skipped ahead. Never rushed. At exactly 10:30 he stopped. Good night, he whispered. I'll be back tomorrow. As he stood to leave, her fingers twitched, just slightly. Not enough to be called a miracle, but enough to matter. Back in her apartment, Claire stared at the city lights and wondered, for the first time in a very long time, what kind of life required someone to leave exactly at 6:10, and why it felt wrong that she judged it. If this story is making you feel something quiet but heavy, if you believe devotion doesn't always look dramatic, if you think some people deserve to be seen without needing applause, subscribe to the channel. These are the stories we tell here. Claire Holloway did not ask about Ethan Cole the next morning. She wanted to. The question hovered at the back of her throat all through the 8:30 briefing, pressing forward every time she saw his name flash across a screen or heard someone casually reference his work. But she didn't ask. Not yet. She had learned early in her career that curiosity, when expressed too openly, could be mistaken for weakness, especially when you were the youngest person in the room and the only one without decades of institutional armor to protect you. So instead she watched. At 9:12 a.m., Ethan raised his hand during a resource allocation review. Not dramatically. Not insistently. Just enough to be seen. If we reroute the mobile units through the West Corridor, he said, calm and precise, we can cut response time by 7 minutes during peak congestion. A murmur rippled through the room. 7 minutes mattered. Why wasn't that flagged earlier? Asked Mark Feldman, a senior coordinator who had been with the department since before Claire was born. Ethan didn't bristle. He never did. Because the model required 3 consecutive months of traffic density data to confirm consistency, he replied. We only crossed that threshold last night. Mark frowned. So you've been tracking this off-cycle? Yes. On your own time? Yes. Mark leaned back, arms crossed. And yet you still leave at 6:10. A few people chuckled. Claire felt heat rise in her chest. That's enough, she said sharply. The room fell silent. Mark blinked. I didn't mean, I know what you meant, Claire said. And it's irrelevant. Results speak for themselves. Ethan didn't look at her. He simply nodded once and lowered his hand. But she saw it, the faint tightening at his jaw. The cost of being defended. After the meeting, Claire retreated to her office and pulled up Ethan's personnel file again. She had already memorized most of it. Age, 38. Marital status. Widow dependent. 1. Noah Cole, age 9. Emergency contact. St. Gabriel's Assisted Care Facility widowed. The word sat heavier than she expected. She hadn't known that part. She stared at the screen, then closed the file without clicking further. Some doors, she was beginning to understand, didn't open because you could open them. They opened when you were invited. At 12:04 p.m., Claire stood in the cafeteria line, tray in hand, debating whether she was hungry at all. She hadn't slept well. The image of the plastic dinosaur from Ethan's desk drawer kept resurfacing. Small, imperfect, deeply personal. Director Holloway? She turned. Ethan stood behind her, holding a plain sandwich and an apple. "Hi," she said too quickly. "I didn't realize you ate lunch here." "Sometimes," he replied. "When it fits." She nodded. "Would you like to sit?" The words surprised both of them. Ethan hesitated, just a fraction of a second. 30 minutes, he said. "That's fine," she replied. "I'm not very interesting anyway." That earned her a look. Not quite a smile. But close. They sat at a corner table near the windows. For a moment, neither spoke. Claire hated silence when it felt loaded. Ethan seemed comfortable with it. "So," she said finally, gesturing vaguely, "you're widowed." He didn't stiffen. He didn't flinch. "Yes." "I'm sorry," she added quickly. It's all right," he said. "It's accurate." The way he said it, flat, factual, made her chest tighten. "Does Noah remember her?" she asked. "Yes," Ethan said. "In pieces." He remembers her laugh more than her face. And the way she used to sing off-key in the kitchen. Claire smiled despite herself. "That sounds human." "It was," Ethan said. "Still is in some ways." She wanted to ask more. She didn't. Instead, she said, Mark was out of line this morning." Ethan shrugged. "He's not wrong." Claire frowned. "About what?" "About me leaving," Ethan replied. "It's unusual. People fill the gaps with stories when they don't have explanations. And you don't feel the need to correct them?" "No," he said simply. "They're not wrong to wonder. They're just wrong about the answer." Before she could respond, his watch buzzed softly. He glanced down. "Time," he said. "It's been 26 minutes, Claire pointed out. "I need 4 minutes to transition," he replied, standing. She watched him go, something unsettled blooming in her chest. Transition. From what to what? That evening, Noah burst into the kitchen waving a permission slip. "Dad, we're having a family's day at school." Ethan paused mid-chop. "When?" he asked. "Next Friday. Everyone's parents come and talk about their jobs." Ethan exhaled slowly. "Everyone?" "Yeah. Mrs. Patel said it's important for kids to see what grown-ups do." Ethan smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. "What if," he said carefully, "I came for a little while but not the whole thing?" Noah's shoulders slumped. "But you always leave early." Ethan knelt, meeting his son's gaze. "I know," he said. "And I don't love that you notice." Noah studied him with the seriousness children reserve for moments they know matter. "Is it because of Grandma?" he asked. Ethan didn't answer immediately. "Yes," he said finally. Noah nodded. "Okay. That's it." Ethan asked. Noah shrugged. "She needs you more." Ethan closed his eyes for a brief moment, steadying himself. "You're a good kid," he said quietly. "I know," Noah replied. "You tell me a lot." 2 days later, Claire received an email from the mayor's office. Subject: Emergency Preparedness Summit. Attendance required. The city was hosting a regional summit for emergency management leaders. Panels, networking dinners, strategy sessions stretching well into the evening. Mandatory attendance for department heads. She skimmed the schedule and felt her stomach drop. The closing session ran until 8 p.m. The keynote dinner began at 6:30. Ethan's name appeared on the recommended panelist list. She closed her laptop and leaned back in her chair. This was the kind of event people waited years to attend. This was the kind of visibility that changed careers. She already knew the answer. But she had to ask. Ethan stood in her office later that afternoon, hands folded, expression neutral. "I can attend the daytime sessions," he said. "I can speak on the data panel. But I'll need to leave by 6:10. "The keynote dinner starts at 6:30, Claire said. "Yes. That's when the mayor will be present." "I understand. And this is important." "I know." She studied him. "You're refusing," she said. "I'm declining the evening portion," he corrected gently. Claire felt frustration spike, not at him but at the rigidity of the situation. "Is there truly no flexibility?" she asked. "Just this once." Ethan was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, "If I stay, someone else loses." The words landed heavier than she expected. "Who?" she asked. He met her gaze. "My son," he said. "My mother." The air in the room shifted. Claire exhaled slowly. "What if," she said carefully, "we rearranged the agenda?" Ethan blinked. "What? What if I spoke to the mayor's office and moved your panel earlier?" she continued. "What if we excused you from the dinner?" "That would be unusual," Ethan said. "So are you," Claire replied. A corner of his mouth twitched. "Why would you do that?" he asked. She didn't answer right away. Because she'd started to understand that leadership wasn't about demanding sacrifice. It was about choosing which sacrifices mattered. "I need you at your best," she said finally. "And your best clearly happens before 6:10. Ethan nodded slowly. "Thank you," he said. It wasn't dramatic, but it felt earned. The summit was a success. Ethan spoke with clarity and authority, fielding complex questions without notes, his answers precise and grounded. At 5:58 p.m. he gathered his materials. At 6:05 he shook Claire's hand. At 6:10, he said, "I'll be gone." "I know," she replied. As he walked away, the mayor leaned toward her. "That man," he said, "is disciplined." Claire watched Ethan disappear into the crowd. "He's devoted," she replied. Later that night at St. Gabriel's, Ethan read aloud while Noah colored quietly at the small table by the window. "Dad," Noah said suddenly, "why don't you ever go on dates?" Ethan paused. "Why do you ask?" "Because Jacob's mom goes on dates. And Mrs. Alvarez says grown-ups need friends." Ethan considered this. "Some people need different things," he said carefully. Noah frowned. "Do you need different things?" "Yes." "Like what?" Ethan looked at his mother, still and breathing. "Like being where I'm needed." Noah nodded, satisfied. "That makes sense," he said. "You're good at that." Ethan smiled. Across the city, Claire sat alone in her apartment, replaying the day. She thought about Ethan's calm refusal. About the way he'd said someone else loses. About the child who understood more than most adults. And for the first time in years she wondered, what would it mean to build a life that didn't require leaving someone behind? If this story is making you pause, if it's reminding you that quiet devotion is still devotion, if you believe the strongest people don't always announce their strength, subscribe to the channel. More stories like this are coming. The first time Claire Holloway crossed a line, she didn't realize she'd crossed it. It happened quietly. No scandal. No raised voices. No dramatic moment that could be pointed to later and labeled "that's when everything changed." It was just a question. "Is your mother awake?" Claire stopped mid-step in the hallway outside the operations floor. Ethan stood behind her, jacket already on, bag slung over one shoulder. It was 6:07 p.m. She turned slowly. "What?" "At St. Gabriel's," he clarified. "You asked last week. You said you hoped she was having more good days." Claire blinked. "Oh, yes. She was awake when I left." "That's good," he said. "She likes mornings." There was a pause. A small one. The kind that could still be walked away from. "You know," Claire said carefully, "you don't have to ask me about my family." Ethan studied her face. "I know." "Then why do you?" "Because you asked me about mine," he replied. That felt fair. Something in her chest shifted. Not discomfort. Recognition. That night, Claire drove home in silence, radio off, city lights streaking past her windshield. She replayed the day in fragments. Ethan explaining a staffing algorithm to a room full of senior officials who had underestimated him. Ethan quietly packing up at 6:05 without apology. Ethan asking about her mother like it mattered. And suddenly, the question that had been circling her thoughts for weeks landed fully formed. When did professionalism turn into intimacy? The answer came sooner than she expected. 2 days later, at 4:42 a.m., Claire's phone rang. She fumbled for it, heart already racing. "Director Holloway," a voice said urgently. "We have a multi-vehicle pileup on Route 8. Fog conditions. At least 20 cars." "I'm on my way," Claire said, already throwing the covers back. By 5:11 she was in the command center, hair pulled back, adrenaline sharp in her veins. Ethan was already there. Of course he was. He stood at the main display, sleeves rolled up, voice steady as he issued instructions. "Divert units from the south. Get air support as soon as visibility allows. No one moves independently, this fog is unpredictable." Claire slipped into place beside him. "How bad?" she asked. "Worse than initial reports," he said. "Too critical. Possibly more." They worked in sync without thinking. By 6:38, the situation stabilized. By 7:05, the last ambulance cleared the site. Only then did Claire notice Ethan's hands. They were shaking. Just slightly. "You okay?" she asked quietly. He nodded. Adrenaline crash. "You should sit. In a minute." He checked his watch. 7:12. Too late for his usual routine. She saw the calculation flicker across his face. "I'll handle coverage," she said quickly. "Go." He hesitated. "I mean it," she added. "I've got this." Ethan exhaled. "Thank you," he said. "I owe you." She shook her head. "You don't." But he looked at her like she was wrong. At 8:19 a.m., Claire received a message she wasn't expecting. "Ethan, Noah's school called. Family's day was moved to today. I forgot. I messed up." She stared at the screen. "Claire, are you with him?" "Ethan, no. I'm still at work. I didn't see the voicemail until now." She was already grabbing her coat. "Claire, where is the school?" "Ethan, why?" "Claire, because I'm coming with you." 3 dots appeared. Disappeared. Appeared again. "Ethan." "Claire, that's not appropriate." She typed back without hesitation. "Claire, neither is a 9-year-old standing alone while everyone else's parents talk about their jobs." A long pause. Then Ethan. "Thank you." The elementary school smelled like glue sticks and pencil shavings. Children's artwork lined the walls: crayon families, crooked houses, stick-figure dogs. Claire felt absurdly out of place in her tailored coat. Noah spotted Ethan immediately. "Dad." He ran, nearly colliding with Claire in the process. He froze. "Oh," he said. "Hi." Claire crouched to his level. "Hi, Noah." "You came," he said, eyes flicking between them. Ethan cleared his throat. Plans changed. Noah studied his father's face. Then Claire's. Something clicked. "Oh," he said again. "Okay." Mrs. Patel smiled warmly. "We're just about to start, Mr. Cole. And you brought?" "Claire," Ethan said. "She's my boss." Noah tilted his head. "You don't look like a boss." Claire laughed. "Is that good or bad?" Noah considered. "Good." The presentation was simple. Parents talked about what they did. Doctors, teachers, mechanics. When it was Ethan's turn, he stood, hands folded. "I help people when things go wrong," he said. "Not by myself. With a team." "And why is that important?" Mrs. Patel prompted. Ethan glanced at Noah. "Because people shouldn't face hard things alone." Noah beamed. Claire felt something tighten behind her ribs. Afterward, as they walked back to the car, Noah skipped ahead. "Thank you," Ethan said quietly. "You don't have to keep saying that," Claire replied. "I know," he said. "But I want to." She stopped walking. "Ethan," she said, "can I ask you something?" He nodded. "Why won't you date?" The question hung between them. Not curious. Not playful. Honest. Ethan looked away. For a long time he didn't speak. Then he said, "Because dating assumes I have something left to give." Claire swallowed. "And you don't?" "I give everything already," he said. "To my son. To my mother. To my work. There's nothing spare." "That's not true," she said softly. He met her gaze. "You don't get to decide that," he replied. "Not for me." The words weren't sharp, but they cut. "I'm sorry," she said immediately. "I shouldn't have." "No," he interrupted. "You should have." She looked at him, confused. "Because now," he continued, voice lower, "I can tell you the rest." She waited. "I don't date," he said, "because if I let myself want something more, someone more, I'd have to admit what I lost." Claire felt her breath catch. "And I don't have room for that grief," he finished. "Not if I want to keep standing." Silence wrapped around them. Noah climbed into the car. Ethan opened the driver's door. Before he could get in, Claire said, "You don't have to stand alone." He paused. "I do," he said. "That's how this works." Then he drove away. That night Claire cried. Not loudly. Not dramatically. Just quietly, sitting on her kitchen floor, knees pulled to her chest. She cried for Ethan. For the man who rationed his life like oxygen. For the boy who accepted absence with grace. For herself. Because somewhere along the way she had started to care in a way that had nothing to do with leadership. 3 weeks passed. Work intensified. A funding crisis hit. Media scrutiny spiked. Claire and Ethan spoke constantly, but only about work. They were careful. Too careful. Until the day Ethan didn't leave at 6:10. Claire noticed at 6:23. At 6:31 she found him still at his desk. "Ethan," she said. He looked up, eyes rimmed red. "I can't go," he said. Her stomach dropped. "What happened?" "My mother fell," he said. "She's in the hospital. They're running tests." "Why are you still here?" Claire demanded. "Because I can't do anything," he snapped. "And if I sit there and wait, I'll fall apart." She crossed the room in 3 strides. "Go," she said firmly. "Now. I can't drive like this." She grabbed her coat. "Then I will." The hospital room was quiet. Machines hummed. Ethan sat beside the bed, shoulders hunched. Claire stood back, unsure. "She won't wake up," he said hollowly. "They say it's time." Claire stepped forward. Without thinking, she placed a hand over his. He didn't pull away. "I don't know how to do this," he whispered. "You don't have to know," she said. "You just have to be here." He looked at her then. Really looked. "You stayed," he said. "Yes." "Even though it complicates things." "Yes." "Why?" She didn't answer right away. Then, honestly, "Because I don't want a life where the important moments are always inconvenient." Ethan's eyes filled. He squeezed her hand. And for the first time he let himself lean. Hours later, when it was over, Ethan walked out into the cold night. Claire followed. "I meant what I said," he told her quietly. "About not having room." She nodded. "I know. But maybe," he continued, voice unsteady, "I was wrong about one thing." "What?" "That grief and love can't coexist." Claire's breath hitched. "I don't know what this is," he said. "And I can't promise anything." She stepped closer. "I'm not asking for promises," she said. "Just honesty." He looked at her. And this time he didn't look away. The first thing Claire Holloway noticed was the silence. Not the good kind. Not the peaceful end-of-day hush that settled over the Emergency Coordination Center when crises resolved and teams went home. This silence was tight. Watchful. The kind that meant something had already happened. It was Monday, 7:18 a.m. She hadn't even set her bag down when Mark Jensen from compliance cleared his throat behind her. "Claire," he said. "We need to talk." She turned slowly. "What about?" "About Ethan Cole." The name landed heavier than it should have. "Okay," she said evenly. "What about him?" Mark gestured toward the glass conference room. "In private." Inside, the blinds were half closed. Legal was already there. So was HR. Claire's stomach tightened. This wasn't a conversation. This was a verdict looking for justification. "He's refused the relocation package." Claire crossed her arms. "He told you that weeks ago." "Yes," HR said. "But the board assumed it was temporary resistance." "And now?" Claire asked. "Now the Denver role needs to be filled," legal said. "And he's the best candidate." "He's also the only one who said no," Claire replied. Mark sighed. "Claire, you know how this looks." She met his eyes. "How does it look?" "Like favoritism," he said. "Like emotional involvement." The room went still. Claire felt heat rise behind her eyes, not anger, not fear. Recognition. "So let me understand," she said slowly. "You're saying the problem isn't that Ethan refuses to uproot his life. The problem is that I've allowed him to." "That's not," HR began. "That is what you're saying," Claire cut in. Legal adjusted his glasses. "The board wants consistency." "Consistency with what?" she asked. "Punishing devotion?" No one answered. Finally, Mark said, "The question on the table is simple." Claire waited. "Will Ethan accept the relocation," he continued, "or will we be forced to reassign him to a lesser role?" There it was. The threat dressed as policy. Claire leaned back in her chair. "Have you spoken to him?" she asked. "We wanted to speak to you first." "Why?" "Because," Mark said carefully, "you're the variable." Claire nodded once. "Then I want you to document this," she said. "Every word. Because if you demote him for choosing his family, you'll be doing it publicly." Legal frowned. "You're pushing back hard on this." "Yes," Claire said. "I am." "Why?" She didn't answer right away. Then, "Because some sacrifices shouldn't be demanded by institutions that will never return the favor." The meeting ended without resolution, which meant the clock had started. Ethan noticed the shift immediately. He always did. Claire's emails were shorter. Meetings that used to include him suddenly didn't. People stopped making eye contact. At 6:12 p.m. he packed his bag anyway. Routine didn't wait for approval. Noah was already at the kitchen table when Ethan got home, working through math problems. "How was school?" Ethan asked, loosening his tie. Noah shrugged. Okay. Just okay? Mrs. Patel says we're doing a presentation about heroes. Ethan smiled faintly. That's nice. She said heroes are people who show up even when it's hard. Ethan stilled. Did she? He asked. Noah nodded. I thought of you. Ethan swallowed. Thanks, buddy. Noah hesitated. Dad. Yeah. Are you going to lose your job? The question was too direct. Too perceptive. Ethan sat down across from him. Why would you think that? You've been quiet, Noah said. Quiet. Not tired quiet. Ethan considered lying, then decided not to. I don't know, he said honestly. But if I do, we'll be okay. Noah studied him. You won't go away? No, Ethan said immediately. Never. Then it's fine, Noah said, returning to his homework. Jobs come and go. Ethan stared at his son. Who told you that? Noah shrugged. You did. When Mom got sick. Ethan turned away, throat tight. At 9:43 p.m., Claire stood outside Ethan's building. She hadn't planned to come. But some truths refused to stay contained. He opened the door looking surprised. Claire? I won't stay long, she said. We need to talk. He stepped aside. The apartment smelled like pasta and detergent. A life lived efficiently. Noah peeked out from his room. Oh, he said. Hi. Hi, Claire replied softly. I'll be in my room, Noah said. I'm reading. Ethan waited until the door closed. What's wrong? He asked. They're coming for you, Claire said. He exhaled. I figured. They want you in Denver. I won't go. I know. And that's the problem. Yes. He leaned against the counter. I told you this would happen. I know, she said again. But I need you to understand something. He looked at her. I didn't protect you because I care about you, she said. I protected you because you're right. Ethan shook his head slightly. Claire, no, she said. Let me finish. She took a breath. I've built my career on optimization, efficiency, maximizing outcomes. And you walked into my system and broke it simply by refusing to abandon what mattered. That wasn't my intention. I know, she said. That's the point. Silence filled the room. Finally, Ethan said, What are you going to do? I'm going to tell them the truth. Which is that leadership without humanity is just control with better lighting. A beat. That will cost you, he said quietly. Yes, she replied. I know. He searched her face. Why would you do that for me? She didn't hesitate this time. Because if I don't, she said, I'll become someone I don't recognize. The board meeting was scheduled for Thursday, 10 a.m. Claire stood at the head of the table, hands steady. Ethan was not present. This was not his fight. Mr. Cole has refused relocation, the chair began. Which presents a challenge. It presents a choice, Claire corrected. Murmurs rippled. She continued. Ethan Cole has consistently delivered results beyond expectation. He has saved this organization millions through systems that exist because he chose presence over ambition. That's sentimental, someone said. No, Claire replied. It's factual. She clicked the remote. Graphs appeared. Metrics. Outcomes. But this, she said, changing the slide, is the part you don't measure. A photo. Noah's class at Family's Day. Blurry. Innocent. A risk. You used a child? Someone snapped. No, Claire said evenly. I used truth. She met their eyes one by one. You are asking a man who has already buried his wife, who cares for an aging parent, who raises a child alone, to sacrifice the only stability he has left for optics. Silence. And if that is the cost of leadership here, she finished, then I am no longer qualified to lead. Gasp. The chair leaned forward. Are you resigning? No, Claire said. I'm redefining success. The room erupted. Claire was asked to step outside. She waited. Minutes stretched. At 11:27 a.m. Mark emerged. They're furious, he said. And divided. And Ethan? He keeps his role. No relocation. Relief flooded her. And me? Mark hesitated. You're on probation, he said. For now. Claire nodded. Fair. As she walked away, she felt lighter than she had in years. Ethan found out that evening. He didn't speak at first. Then, you didn't have to do that. Yes, Claire said softly. I did. You risked everything. She smiled faintly. So did you. Every day. Quietly. Pause. I don't know how to thank you, he said. Don't, she replied. Just keep showing up. He nodded. I can do that. Weeks passed. The world did not collapse. Work continued. Claire's authority changed, less unquestioned, more human. Ethan remained exactly the same. At 6:10 he left. One evening Claire noticed something new. A woman waiting downstairs. Not glamorous. Tired. Kind eyes. Noah ran to her. Ethan followed. Claire didn't ask. She didn't need to. Some things unfolded without explanation. Months later, Claire received a handwritten note. It read, "You once asked why I wouldn't date. The answer wasn't fear. It was fidelity to promises already made. Thank you for seeing that as strength." She folded the note carefully. Outside the city hummed. People showed up. Lives continued. And somewhere in the ordinary something holy persisted. Not applause. Not romance. Just presence. If this story moved you, if quiet devotion matters to you more than loud heroics, subscribe to the channel for more stories about love, loss, and the courage to stay. These are the stories worth staying for.